In the gritty sprawl of Ironwood, a town forged in steel and stubborn pride, Thomas Reed's diner stood as a battered lighthouse amid a sea of rust and renewal. Reed's place wasn't fancy, just a squat brick building with flickering neon and grease-stained menus, but it was the beating heart of the South Side, where mill workers and single moms swapped tales over coffee that never went cold. For 30 years, Thomas had run it, his broad hands flipping burgers and his quiet grin welcoming all. But Ironwood was shifting. Corporate cranes clawed at the skyline, and Apex Realty had plans shiny malls and high-rises that didn't include a diner with cracked booths. On a bitter December night, those plans turned lethal when Thomas was shot dead in his own kitchen, the killing pinned on a fabricated robbery. The truth, etched in the unerring memory of his 13-year-old son, Jacob Reed, would ignite a fire that Apex couldn't extinguish. Jacob had his father's steady hands and his mother's piercing eyes, but his mind was a marvel every sight, sound and second locked in perfect clarity. That night, peering through the diner's back vent, he saw the muzzle flash, heard the staged shouts, and memorized the face of Officer Victor Hayes as he planted a knife by Thomas's body. They thought they'd buried the evidence with the man. They didn't count on Jacob. Months later, in a courtroom electric with tension, his voice, young but unbreakable, would tear their lies apart, setting Ironwood ablaze with a reckoning long overdue. 6 months earlier, the Reed family's life hummed with hard-earned warmth. Dawn broke over their cramped apartment above the diner, the clatter of pans rising with the sun. Thomas stood at the stove, bacon sizzling as he hummed an old Union song. His wife, Grace, sat at the table, her calculator clicking as she balanced the diner's books. Her day job as a nurse left her little sleep, but she never complained. Jacob sprawled nearby, reciting baseball stats from memory, his voice a steady rhythm. DiMaggio, 325 average, 1941, he called, flipping a pencil. Show off, Thomas chuckled, sliding him a plate. You'll run this place with that brain someday. Grace smiled, her eyes tired but bright. Or he'll outsmart us all. Just don't forget where you started, kid. Their world was small but solid. Thomas had taken over the diner from his uncle, turning it into a refuge for Ironwood Southsiders, free meals for laid-off steelworkers, a jar for kids' lunch money. Grace patched up neighbors at the clinic, her calm a balm for a town fraying at the edges. Jacob, 8th grade and lanky, was their spark, his recall a party trick that won bets and awed teachers. But beneath their grit, a storm brewed. It started with the letters. Polished envelopes arrived, offering fair market value for Reed's place, signed Apex Realty. Thomas tossed them in the trash. They can shove their market, he said, his jaw tight. This diner's not a bargaining chip. The pressure crept in. For sale signs sprouted on the block, and neighbors cashed out, their homes bulldozed for staging lots. A coming soon, Apex Center billboard loomed across the street, its promise of luxury a middle finger to Thomas's chipped counter. He watched it all, his knuckles whitening as he scrubbed dishes. This is our ground, he told Jacob one night, wiping down tables. They don't get to take it because they've got deeper pockets. Jacob nodded, stacking chairs. I've got it logged, Dad. Every move they make, trouble hit on a gray March afternoon. Officer Victor Hayes strode into Reed's place, his badge glinting under the fluorescence. He scanned the room, his smirk sharp as he tapped his baton on the counter. Health check, he announced, loud enough for the regulars to hear. He poked at the grill, frowning at spotless steel. Heard some joints around here, cut corners. Wouldn't want that for you, Reed. Thomas kept his cool. We're clean, officer. Look all you want. Hayes lingered, flipping through the register with a theatrical slowness, asking about customers' old man. Carter's pie habit. Jenny's late shifts, his baton resting near his hip. Before leaving, he leaned close. Nice spot. Hate to see it go south. The diner hushed after he left. Thomas's hands shook as he locked up. They're circling, he told Grace that night, his voice low. Testing us. She frowned, her pen pausing. It's Apex. I saw a memo at the clinic, 3 businesses on Mill Street, all hit with fines, all sold to them. It's a squeeze. Jacob listened, his fork still. Later he jotted it down. Hayes, 1:47 p.m., badge 729, his pencil steady. Thomas's words stuck. Log it all. Spring tightened the screws. Grace faced random audits at work, her shifts cut without reason. Jacob timed them, 17 minutes of questions, just enough to exhaust her. Thomas dealt with surprise visits, fire codes, tax checks, each citing nonsense, a vent off by a hair, books irregular despite years of audits. Fines stacked up, and suppliers stalled, their excuses thin. One snowy night, Jacob watched from the diner's stoop as Thomas was stopped, frisked in the cold for a broken light that wasn't. The family kept a list, dates, officers, plates. Hayes's name loomed large. The threats grew teeth. A brick smashed the diner's window, cell scratched into it. Fake liens hit their mail, claiming unpaid debts. Late calls woke them, heavy breathing on the line. Jacob found his bike chain cut at school, and Grace's car got photos slipped under the wipers. Jacob at recess. Thomas locking up. Thomas wired cameras, taught Jacob to spot tails, and hid a recorder in the kitchen. Grace rigged an email alert evidence to allies, if untouched, for 48 hours. They want us scared, Thomas said, his eyes hard. We'll give them stubborn. By summer, Ironwood simmered. Union halls raged against Apex, but fear choked most. Thomas spoke at one, his voice booming. This isn't growth, it's theft. They're gutting us for profit. Grace handed out flyers, her gaze flicking to cops in the back. Jacob collected names, spotting Hayes outside, snapping pics. Next day, Miss S. Ellie Dunn, a widow who ate free, whispered, "My son's at City Hall. Says you're Mark, Thomas. Watch out." That night, Thomas sat in the diner's dark, staring at his uncle's faded photo. Grace found him, Jacob trailing with Coco. "We're not folding," he said. "This is our line." 2 nights later, Jacob woke to headlights 2:19 a.m., a black SUV, plate IFURM 613. He logged it, creeping to Thomas's room. His dad was up, watching. "Back to sleep, son," he murmured. "I've got eyes on it." The breaking point came on a frigid December evening. Hayes banged on the diner's door at closing, his cruiser's lights flashing. "Safety check," he sneered, eyeing Jacob wiping tables. He noted details, Grace's shift chart, Jacob's algebra book, his grin cold. "Busy kid. Shame if school got tough." Thomas blocked his path. "We're fine, officer. Good night." Hayes dropped a card. "Anytime." After he left, Jacob's hands shook. "He's been at school, Dad, near the fence." Thomas hugged him. "We're out of time," he told Grace later. "We move now." That night, Thomas met a tipster, an ex-cop, in a lot. Jacob followed, recorder on, hiding behind crates. Hayes arrived with Apex's Carl Vance and Councilman Roy Dunn. "Phase 3's January," Vance said, puffing a cigar. "Reed's the last domino. Break him," Hayes replied. "Rest collapse." Dunn scowled. "Fines didn't work?" "He's too clean," Hayes said. "Needs a hard stop." Vance nodded. "Empty that diner by New Year's." Jacob's foot slipped, a crate creaking. Hayes spun, gun out, but Jacob bolted, heart pounding. He clutched the recording, proof burning in his grip. Next day, suppliers quit. "Pressure," one muttered. Then, at 3:12 p.m., Hayes stormed in, warrant in hand. "Robbery tip," he barked, clearing the diner. Thomas stayed calm. "Call my lawyer." Later, Hayes snapped, planting cash and a knife. "Check the cameras," Thomas yelled. An officer smashed them. From the vent, Jacob watched, recording. Thomas signaled, "Stay hidden." Hayes shouted, "He's armed." 2 shots rang out. Thomas fell, blood pooling, his phone dropping. Hayes placed the knife, coolly saying, "He lunged." Grace arrived, screaming as cops held her. Jacob grabbed a hidden USB and slipped out. His last sight, Thomas's still hand, Police swarmed, Hayes spinning a robbery gone bad. News ran it, diner owner dead in heist. Mayor Klein praised the force. Evidence vanished, footage doctored. At Thomas's funeral, Jacob stood mute, placing the diner key on the casket. "I've got it all," he whispered. Hayes stared, a threat in his eyes. For 31 days, Jacob didn't speak, his room a maze of notes. Grace fought alone, her pregnancy a girl adding stakes. Then one night, he told his grandmother Ruth, stirring stew, "They're lying. I'll prove it." The kitchen went still, Ruth's ladle hovering over the pot as Jacob's words hung in the air. "They're lying. I'll prove it." His voice, steady despite the tremor in his hands, carried a weight that made Ruth set the spoon down, her eyes narrowing. "You sure about this, boy?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "That's a heavy load for 13. Jacob met her gaze, his father's key glinting in his fist. "I saw it, Grandma. Hayes shot Dad, planted the knife. I've got the recording." He pulled the device from his pocket, a cheap digital recorder Thomas had stashed in the kitchen, and hit play. The muffled sound of his father's voice crackled through. "I'm reaching for my phone, not..." Two sharp pops cut him off, followed by Hayes's cool. He lunged. Ruth's face tightened, her breath catching. "We need your mom," she said, but Jacob shook his head. "She's barely holding on. I need more, something they can't bury." Ruth studied him, seeing Thomas's steel in his lanky frame. "You're a Reed, all right." "Stubborn as hell. What's your plan?" Jacob's jaw set. "Everything's in here," he said, tapping his temple. "I just need to put it together." That night, Jacob didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, the glow of a desk lamp casting shadows over his notebooks, pages dense with timelines, license plates, badge numbers, every detail from Hayes's visits etched in his precise scrawl. His walls, once plastered with baseball posters, now bore a sprawling web, arrows linking. Apex offers to property sales, inspection dates to diner fines, Hayes's badge 729 at the center in bold black ink. He added the SUV from the lot to 19 a.m., E4M 613, and the voices from that night. Vance's cigar rasp, Dunn's scowl, Hayes's cold intent. Downstairs, Grace paced, her phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care if it's closed. I've got proof my husband was murdered." Her voice broke as she begged a friend at the precinct, her free hand cradling her belly. The baby kicked, a silent plea to keep going. She hung up, collapsing onto the couch, unaware. Jacob watched from the hall, his recorder still running. Morning brought a lien notice, $20,000 in unpaid taxes, due in 15 days despite Grace's records. The diner's lot sprouted a condemned sign overnight, and a water main burst flooded their basement, the city shrugging it off. Neighbors sold out fast, their homes razed, leaving the Reeds in a shrinking island of resistance. Jacob saw it all, his silence a shield as he gathered more. He slipped into the diner's ruins at dawn, the tape fluttering in the wind. Dodging a patrol car's lazy sweep, he pried up a floorboard Thomas had shown him, retrieving a second USB backup footage from a hidden camera. Back home, he played it, Hayes poking the grill, his voice low. "Be a pity if this place burned." Jacob's pulse raced more ammo. School turned hostile. His math teacher, Mr. Klein, Mayor Klein's nephew, flagged his perfect quiz as suspect. Docking points despite Jacob reciting formulas back. Hayes lingered at the fence during lunch, his cruiser idling. Jacob logged at 12:33 p.m., gray jacket, and kept his head down, his pencil flying. Grace's circle shrank. Old regulars dodged her at the store, their eyes guilty. Anonymous pies appeared on their stoop, quiet defiance from a scared town. Mrs. Ellie Dunn brought broth, whispering, "They'll squeeze you dry, Grace, don't let 'em." Most stayed mute, fear winning out. One night, Grace found Jacob's room, her gasp sharp as she saw the evidence wall. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice raw. "Truth," Jacob said, handing her the USBs. "Dad knew they'd hit us. He left us a way to hit back." She listened to the recordings, tears spilling as Thomas's voice filled the gap he'd left. She gripped Jacob's shoulder. We're not doing this alone anymore. They met Sam Torres, a scrappy reporter, in a truck stop outside Ironwood. Jacob wore a cap low, his recorder on as Torres jotted notes. I broke a bribery scandal in 18, he said, eyeing the USBs. Got death threats. If this is real, it's dynamite. Jacob recounted the lot meeting, Vance's cigar puff, Dunn's frown, Hayes's hard stop. Torres's pen froze. You caught that? At 13:13:13? I don't forget, Jacob said, his tone flat. Grace added, Thomas set up an email drop. It sent files when he didn't log in 2 weeks ago. Contacts got them, but they're spooked. Torres leaned in, his voice low. This could topple Apex, but they'll come for you. Hard. You in? We've got no choice, Grace said, her hand on Jacob's. Torres's first piece ran days later. A subtle jab. Questions linger in diner shooting. Public records showed Apex snapping up Southside lots post-raid, a pattern Jacob's wall had mapped. Tips trickled in a cook swearing Thomas locked the till that night, a mechanic spotting Hayes's cruiser near the diner at odd hours. Jacob cataloged each, his notes stacking high. Hayes struck back. Grace's car was towed from the clinic lot, abandoned. Jacob found a tracker under his backpack strap, its signal live. Their apartment was hit traitor scrawled in grease on the door. Grace installed cameras, testing them with Jacob nightly. Their safe word griddle, Thomas's pride set for danger. One evening, Officer Leah Cole, a rookie, slipped Grace a note after a union meet. Hayes runs a shadow log iron list in the precinct basement. You're on it. She bolted before Grace could reply. Jacob overheard, adding iron list to his web. Next day, a Molotov cocktail grazed their stoop, singeing the railing. Grace called Torres, who traced Cole's tip to a leaked roster officers tied to Apex payouts, timed to property flips. Jacob's lot recording named the same players, Vance, Dunn, Hayes. Grace stormed District Attorney Elena Voss's office, Jacob's evidence in hand. This is a hit, she said, slamming the USBs down. My son saw it. Voss, sharp-eyed and weary, sighed. It's shut, Grace. I'd need a damn avalanche to crack it. Then dig, Grace snapped, playing the lot audio. Voss's skepticism wavered. Where'd this come from? Jacob, Grace said. He's 13, and he's got more guts than your badge. Voss tapped her desk. Hayes has the precinct locked. Judge Hart's their guy, but I'll poke. Off the books, a month later, a grand jury convened in secret. Jacob and Grace slipped in through a side door, press band. Jacob wore Thomas's key on a chain, his recorder hidden in his sleeve. The jurors' factory hands, teachers, a nurse shifted as he took the stand, his lanky frame steady. Voss kept it lean, 10 questions, each met with razor-sharp recall. What happened at 3:12 p.m.? December 8th, she asked. Hayes shot my dad, Jacob said, his voice clear. He held his phone, not a knife. Hayes planted it, said. He lunged. Jurors scribbled, one nodding grimly. Deliberation took 90 minutes, an indictment for murder and tampering. Hayes's arrest aired live, his smirk gone as cuffs clicked. The trial erupted in March, a battlefield of power and deceit. Hayes's defense, led by Paul Grayson, a slick ex-prosecutor, brought 8 lawyers and a media blitz. The union raised $800,000, ads hailing Hayes a martyr. Judge Daniel Hart, a precinct crony, filled the gallery with cops, their glares a wall of menace. Grayson framed Thomas as a thief, Jacob as manipulated. A failing diner, a desperate man, he told the jury, flashing fake receipts. The boys, a tool for his mother's grief. Hart blocked the lot recording unverified and axed harassment claims as speculation. Witnesses buckled. The cook recanted after a shop fire. Miss S. Dunn faltered, her son's job threatened. Grace testified, her voice cracking as Grayson played raid footage. Thomas's body, blood stark. Why'd he resist? Grayson pressed. Grace snapped. He didn't, they framed him. Hart struck it, his gavel sharp. Jacob watched, his pencil racing. He whispered to Voss at recess, "The knife's wrong." Dad's hand was flat, I saw it. Voss played Jacob last. Grayson fought to bar him, citing youth, but Hart relented. Grand jury weight tipped it. The room stilled as Jacob swore in, his hand firm on the Bible. Voss eased in. "Jacob, how old are you?" 13 years, 4 months, he said, crisp and sure. "School?" "8th grade. Ironwood Middle." "I take 9th grade history." Jurors leaned forward. Voss pressed, "Who shot your father?" Jacob's arm rose, pointing at Hayes. Dad held his phone. Hayes planted the knife. Murmurs rippled. Hayes shifted, his tie loose. "Objection," Grayson barked. "Fantasy." "Overruled," Hart grunted. "He's a witness." Jacob laid it out. 3:12 p.m., 2 shots. Hayes's backup gun. Voss asked, "Anything else that day?" "My recorder," Jacob said, pulling it out. "Dad said to catch what matters." Grayson leapt. "Undisclosed." "Submitted yesterday," Voss countered. After a heated sidebar, Hart allowed it, his lips tight. The audio played, Thomas's plea, the shots, Hayes's lie. Jurors froze, one gripping her pen hard. Grayson claimed edits, but Jacob's recall dates, times, every detail held ironclad. Cross-examination turned vicious. Grayson twisted hours, but Jacob corrected. "No, it was July 14th, 2:08 p.m., not the 15th. Hayes wore a red shirt." Jurors smirked. Hayes glared, his calm fraying. Then Jacob struck. "Why'd you clear the diner if it was a robbery tip?" he asked Hayes, his voice a blade. Hayes slammed his fist, roaring, "Because your dad wouldn't quit." The room exploded, jurors recoiling. Bailiffs tackled him, Hart's gavel useless. The tide shifted. Cole cut a deal, exposing the iron list, a precinct hit squad. Files were raided, tying Hayes to Vance and Dunn. Hart stepped down after leaked texts to Grayson surfaced. Judge Maria Ortiz, a reformer, took over, adding conspiracy counts. Hayes faced life, no parole looming. Vance and Dunn braced for racketeering. The chief quit amid probes. Apex stalled, its cranes silent, but Ironwood simmered. Thomas's death had cracked it open, and Jacob's fight wasn't done. The courtroom doors swung shut behind Judge Maria Ortiz's gavel, but the echoes of Jacob's testimony rippled far beyond the stained oak walls of Ironwood's Justice Hall. Officer Victor Hayes's outburst had cracked the dam, and what followed was a flooded deluge of truth that swept through the town, the precinct, and Apex Realty's glass towers, leaving nothing untouched. Ironwood, long a crucible of grit and greed, stood on the brink of transformation, and Jacob Reed, at 13, held the match that would light its rebirth. The next morning broke cold and gray, but Ironwood buzzed with a heat no winter could quench. Officer Leah Cole's deal with internal affairs unleashed a storm. The iron list wasn't just a ledger, it was a blueprint, a shadow operation linking Hayes and a dozen cops to Apex's land grabs. Raids hit the precinct basement at dawn, SWAT teams hauling out boxes, files, burner phones, cash stacks tied to South Side evictions. By noon, the news screamed it live. Ironwood PD implicated in murder-for-hire scheme. Footage showed Hayes in cuffs, his sneer gone, replaced by a hollow stare as he was shoved into a van. Councilman Roy Dunn resigned by lunchtime. His office swarmed by reporters after leaked emails tied him to Apex payouts. Carl Vance, Apex's silver-haired kingpin, vanished. Rumors pegged him on a private jet to a non-extradition haven, but his empire crumbled without him. Apex Center's cranes froze mid-lift, its permits yanked as federal agents seized assets. The South Side exhaled, its streets alive with horns and shouts, anger, relief, and something fiercer, defiance. Grace watched it unfold from their apartment, her twins' ultrasound pinned to the fridge. Calls flooded in union leaders, neighbors, even strangers pledging support. "They're scared of us now," she told Jacob over breakfast, her voice steady but her hands trembling. "Your dad's fight, it's waking them up." Jacob nodded, his recorder off but his mind still running. "It's not over," he said, his pencil tracing the day's headlines into his notebook. 12 officers suspended, Apex collapses. His wall grew new arrows linking busts to old threats. A map of corruption unraveling faster than he'd dreamed. Torres's next piece hit like a bomb. Ironwood's child witness topples. A dynasty. It named Jacob, not his full story, but enough to spark a fire. Tips poured in from beyond Ironwood mill towns in Pennsylvania. Dockyards in Jersey, families facing the same playbook. Cops, fines, forced sales. Jacob cataloged each, his desk buried in letters, his recall stitching a national web. "They thought Dad was small," he told Grace, his voice low. He wasn't. The diner's lot became a shrine. Flowers piled where Thomas fell, notes taped to the boarded windows. Reed's place lives. The Union rallied, 500 strong, marching past Apex's stalled site with signs. "Justice for Thomas, Miss S." Ellie Dunn led a vigil, her voice cracking as she sang Thomas's Union hymn, the crowd joining in a roar that shook the frost from the trees. Jacob stood silent at the edge, Thomas's key in his fist, logging every face friends, fighters, the reborn. Apex's fall drew blood. The mayor quit under probe, his campaign funds traced to Vance. The police chief followed, indicted for obstruction. Grace's clinic won a grant federal cash to track displacement, a nod to her work with Voss. She hired a paralegal, her twin's crib wedged beside her desk, and started a tenants' coalition. Its first meat packing, Reed's old dining room, with 80 souls ready to fight. Jacob returned to school, his silence swapped for a quiet steel. Classmates stared, some awed, some wary, but he ignored them, his justice club swelling to 30 kids. They mapped Ironwood scars, closed mills, Apex's ghosts vowing to guard its future. Teachers whispered prodigy, but he shrugged it off, his notebooks, his real classroom. The feds took notice. A DOJ task force landed, Voss briefing them with Jacob's wall, now a database as evidence. "This isn't local," she told Grace. "It's a machine, cops in core, coast to coast." Your son cracked it open. They offered funding. Grace took it, her coalition going statewide. But the beast wasn't dead. Apex's remnants regrouped as steel futures, their ads slicker, their threats quieter. Grace's car was keyed outside court. Jacob found a drone over their roof. Its lens glinting, he logged it. E9K204, his pencil steady. "They're watching," he told Grace, his voice calm but eyes sharp. "We watch harder." Months rolled into a brittle spring, Ironwood teetering between ruin and renewal. Reed's place reopened as the Thomas Reed Justice Co-op diner, clinic, and hub, its neon relit by union hands, its booths packed with Southsiders reclaiming their space. Grace ran the clinic, her newborn daughter, Lily, cooing in a sling as she filed cases. Jacob, now 14, led youth workshops, memory tricks, turned to tracking rights, his recall a beacon for kids like him. The co-op's first anniversary loomed, a celebration planned with 1,000 expected workers, families, allies from afar. Jacob prepped flyers, his wall now public, a mural of Ironwood's fight in the hub's lobby. Grace smiled at it, her twins Lily and Hope tugging her skirt. "Your dad's here," she said, her voice soft. In every line. But the night before, Jacob woke to glass shattering 3:47 a.m., their apartment's front window gone. A brick thudded on the floor, and it carved deep. Grace grabbed Lily, shouting "Griddle," as Jacob bolted for his recorder. Headlights flared outside an SUV, E9K204, the drone's match. He logged it, heart pounding, as Grace dialed Voss. By sunrise, the co-op swarmed with cops, clean ones, Ortiz's pics tracing the plate to steal Future's last holdouts, 3 ex-officers, a developer's cash. Torres broke it, Ironwood faces final stand. The anniversary turned into a siege 1500 showed, not for cake but war. Dusk fell heavy, the co-op's lot a fortress of light and noise. Jacob stood at the mic, Thomas's key gleaming in his hand. The crowd mill hands, moms, kids stretching into the shadows. They killed my dad here, he said, his voice a blade through the wind. Thought they'd kill us too. They were wrong. Cheers erupted, fists raised, a wall of flesh and fury. Grace flanked him, Lily on her hip, her eyes scanning the edges. This is Thomas's ground, she shouted. Ours. They don't take it again. The crowd roared, a thunder that rattled the steel skeletons of Apex's ruins across the street. Then it came headlights slicing the dark, 3 SUVs screeching in, Yanin K204 at the lead. Men piled out, masked, bats and chains, glinting steel futures last gasp, a dozen strong. The crowd froze, then surged, a human tide. Jacob didn't flinch, his recorder rolling as he yelled, "They're here! We've got 'em!" His voice sparked chaos. Workers swung pipes, moms hurled bricks, kids screamed warnings. Grace shoved Lily to Ruth, grabbing a bat from the co-op. "Stay back," she barked at Jacob, but he darted forward, dodging a chain to snatch a mask, Hayes' old partner, eyes wild. "I know you," Jacob shouted, his recall a weapon. "March 12th, 2:19 p.m., you tailed dad." The man faltered, bat dropping as the crowd closed in. Sirens wailed Ortiz's cops, lights blazing, swarming the lot. Shots cracked the air, warning rounds, as the attackers scattered, 5 tackled in the dirt. Jacob stood, chest heaving, the mask in hand, his recorder catching every curse, every plea. Grace pulled him back, her bat bloody, her face fierce. "You're insane," she gasped, hugging him tight. The crowd chanted, "Read, read," as cuffs snapped on, the SUVs impounded. Torres filmed, live feed blazing, Ironwood stands. Voss arrived, her nod grim. "That's the last of 'em," she said. Feds will bury steel futures now. Dawn broke over a battered co-op, its neon flickering but unbroken. Jacob climbed the stage. The crowd hushed, 2,000 now, drawn by the fight. He held Thomas's key high, his voice raw but unshaken. "Dad said truth's only weak if you hide it. We didn't. They came for us 3 times and we're still here. This isn't just Ironwood's win. It's everyone they've crushed. Everyone they'll try to. We're the spark. Burn it down." The roar shook the earth, fists pounding the air, a wave of sound that rolled past Ironwood's borders. Grace joined him, Lily and Hope at her sides, her eyes wet but proud. "Thomas saw this," she said, her voice breaking. "A town that fights back." The co-op stood, scarred but alive. Its lot a battlefield turned monument, flowers where blood spilled, signs vowing never again. Jacob's wall grew beyond Ironwood, letters from a dozen states pinned up, his recall a torch passed to kids he'd never meet. Thomas's death had been a wound, but from it rose a revolution, unyielding, unbreakable, a fire no greed could douse. Jacob stepped down, the key warm in his palm, his eyes on the horizon. "We're not done," he whispered to the dawn, to Thomas, to the world waiting. "Not even close."